The same thing. Very, very good.
Good, good. Liszt is our subject, as we remember from the last program, and we ended with the fourth etude, the fourth Paganini Liszt etude. We were hearing also the original version, and we heard Itzhak Perlman and Viktor Pikaizen in the violin caprice of Paganini, and then we heard Gunnar Johansen and Agustin Anievas.
I'm still remembering that. That was really a thrill to hear that man, Gunnar Johansen.
Yes, and we also heard, of course, number 3 that last program, La Campanella, the fabulous Joseph Levine. And I know that you're reading a little on Liszt.
I have. When one or two selections have been long this morning, and when I had a little time between sessions, I've been going to, I guess what I'm going to refer to your library right behind me here, and going through some books, and some I was surprised at one book, I forget the author, that was really very, very critical of Liszt. I think of his, just everything. The fact that he was born.
That's right. Some people will just hate the fact that he existed.
Yeah. I'm enjoying this one. I've been looking through at the literature of the piano here with some facts on his life. He must have been a fantastic man.
He really was.
The pianist
yes.
of the century.
Yeah, he was. His press agent, which was himself, touted him as the Napoleon, Christ, Byron, all rolled in one. And
warts included.
Yeah, that came later, with the Apache chieftain look, with the long white hair.
Yeah.
But his career had so many aspects, from the sensational Don Juan, which he never, this was possibly a mistake, this fantastic legend that he certainly helped create, and the piano playing of his early years, especially the 12 very busy years from 1835 to 1847, when he played all over Europe, from Spain to Constantinople to Russia. Those were, as some biographies call, the years of splendor, and he made quite an effect. And his affairs in Bavaria with Lola Montez, and the story how he locked her in a room so to get away from her because he was through, and paid the manager the money for all the furniture that Liszt knew that she would break. And then there's the aspect of his career in Weimar, after he leaves the concert stage, never to again really play for money. He had this great conflict of the performing dog that was supposed to please, and he adored applause and yet was repulsed by applause. Then
a strange combination right there, really,
sure.
When you think of it, being so successful, traveling so much, and then to almost go cold turkey, so to speak, from the audience and the applause to almost a celibate life.
Yes, and it was interesting when he stopped, because music was now taking a different, more serious turn for the interpreter. And about after 1850, you couldn't play the same kind of repertory that he got away with, such as potpourris of opera tunes and sensational things, and mostly his own music, although he did great service for Beethoven sonatas. He was the first to play all 32 in Europe. But he cuts that. He has a great instinct for the timing in his life. He knows when to leave something, which is certainly a gift. And he goes to Weimar, and he becomes court conductor there. And during these years, the legend grows as this helpful champion of all modern music, and his motto was first to the living. Although he produced many operas from the past, he was daring in the things he produced in this little town, and he wanted to make it into the musical center of Germany, as it had been the literary center with Schiller and Goethe. So he had great ambitions there. He was respected at court. He was extremely good at all the intrigues and so forth. So he got his way, basically, for a 12-year period. During that time, he was living with the Princess Wittgenstein, a very wealthy woman he met in Russia. And at that moment when he met her, She had the same kind of religious aspirations and fervor that he had, and they had quite an existence together there, living in a villa called the Altenberg, where the greats and the near greats of the world visited. And then the teaching part of him started, and that went into old age, where he divided his time between Weimar, Rome. He had become an abbey. That was a spectacular moment in his career, and it's confused many people, and I certainly understand why.
It confused me a
little bit. It confuses me.
I think it's interesting you mentioned that teaching, that all of this was done, again, for absolutely nothing. No money whatsoever.
No money. And as for the compositions, he wasn't making anything from his work that way. He had certainly never saved a great deal. However, he didn't need the most expensive cigars. He liked cheap ones, that kind of thing. However, we can't feel sorry for Liszt. Although the princess, by illicitly living with Liszt, lost a great deal of her money. She had something like 30 or 40,000 serfs on her estate in Russia, where she had to give this up. She still was wealthy, so Liszt, of course, wasn't in great need. His Weimar salary was nothing, not even $1,000 a year. So he was a magnanimous man. He helped many people, sometimes with money, and of course the most famous example is his relationship with Wagner.
Yes.
When Wagner is a political exile, he has the nerve and daring to put Lohengrin on in Weimar. He helps Grieg. He tells the King of Norway, you have of course Norway had not produced a major composer. You have a great talent up there in the north, and he's struggling to survive with hack work. Give him an income. And indeed, Grieg never had to worry again. That's the power that this man had over kings, popes,
That's true.
so forth. When he was becoming an abbey, the Pius IX heard his confession, and it began very early in the morning. By 3 in the afternoon, the Pope was just astounded and said, Monsieur Liszt, can you please play the rest of your sins for me on the pianoforte?
That's a great line.
So there's much to say about him, and he's a person that continues to fascinate people, possibly because he had the quality of seizing the moment, something that's so difficult.
Yes.
And a few people have that quality. Let's, though, go back now to our music, and we had the fourth etude. Let's have a performance on the violin. We did not hear Ricci. Let's hear how fast he plays number 1, which is the fourth caprice, which is the first caprice of the 24 Paganini, and it's the fourth Paganini Liszt etude. virtuoso violinist Ruggiero Ricci in the Paganini Caprice No. 1. Now, Liszt's transcription here is really quite literal compared to the others, and we have a performance by a pianist we have not yet heard, Edith Farnadi. Let's hear how she does. And that was Edith Farnadi playing the fourth of the Paganini Liszt Etudes. The fifth study, or etude, is known as La Chasse, and that title was given to it by Paganini, not Liszt. And it's a hunting piece, and in the piano it's probably the imitation of flutes and horns. And the piece was a tremendous favorite with Paganini, who through it showed off his mastery of harmonics and double stops. And Liszt tries to capture this. Let's hear performance of the fifth Paganini Liszt Etude by the American pianist Agustin Anievas. scintillating performance by Agustin Anievas. Well, you're smiling.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Very good performance.
Yes.
It's just clear and crisp and it's right there.
That's right. Right there.
Agustin Anievas.
Yeah. And he's recorded all 6 of them. I don't know what's on the other side.
On this one, the Hungarian Rhapsody number 12.
Oh, it's an all right. It's an all Liszt
Constellation
album.
number 3.
Mephisto Waltz. Yes.
Mephisto Waltz.
He's a very fine pianist and a virtuoso. And he never shows off. Let's have the actual violin caprice, which is the 9th in Paganini's series of 24. The performance, Itzhak Perlman. Itzhak Perlman in the 9th Caprice of Paganini. Let's hear it once again on the piano. And we have ready to go Gunnar Johansen. And that was Gunnar Johansen playing the fifth Paganini Liszt Etude. You notice there's a little Scarlatti there?
He was brilliant again, yes. Yes.
Uh-huh. Liszt was conscious of almost all the music before him. Scarlatti, though, he was not terribly interested in, which is very rare for him. I don't think there was, by any means, a complete edition of his works, not until long ago in the early 20th century. But you would think Liszt would be very intrigued with Scarlatti. I only bring that up because of the influence there on Paganini, possibly.
It was interesting this morning in one of the books that mentioned the programs that he played, and it was so well annotated, but they said Chopin was not mentioned. On a few occasions they said that he must have played this piece or that piece, and there was no mention of it at all. And I wonder if that could have been possible. He could have done some of this, but it was just not put down on paper, really.
Very possibly. You mean in performing Scarlatti, or?
Yes, in
yeah. It's very possible. I don't think, I know his pupil Tausig liked Scarlatti very much, but usually it was very well documented. If Liszt was interested in a composer, he would get his hands in something editorially, and he did this with John Field and Weber and quite a few other composers. Schubert, he was one of the few people that loved Schubert's piano music and made sure that an edition got out, because in 1850 or so, Schubert was very unknown. And let's face it, not until 1925, 26, 27 did Arthur Schnabel really bring back the sonatas to the public. So Schubert was hardly played. Liszt adored him, and he made a transcription of the Wanderer Fantasy for solo piano, turning it into piano and orchestra. I understand why he did it. It has this certain kind of concerto quality, and Schubert never wrote a concerto. Anyway, it interested him more in the sense that it was a work of thematic transformation, which would be very important in Liszt's large structures. And the piano sonata is a great example, and Liszt can be called the inventor of the tone poem, or the symphonic poem. And this form of thematic transformation was a way of making a one movement large-scale work really work. After Beethoven, construction on a large level instrumental music faltered desperately, and this was one of Liszt's great challenges. Anyway, let's get back to the Etudes and hear the Caprice played by Viktor Pikaizen, the ninth Caprice of Paganini. And the Soviet violinist Viktor Pikaizen in the Ninth Caprice. We will be back, as they say, very shortly after we do a message. Back to Paganini and Liszt. Also, Schumann. Schumann was very interested in Paganini also, and he transcribed 12 of these caprices. And in Opus 3, we have this fifth etude. And it will be interesting to hear the Liszt version and then the Schumann version. So let's first hear Edith Farnadi in the number 5, the chase, and then we'll listen to Schumann's version. There's the Fifth Etude, Edith Farnadi, pianist. And let's hear Demus, Jorg Demus, in the Schumann version of Paganini's Ninth Caprice. The divine Schumann transforming this into something more like his personality, while Liszt, of course, gloried in a more scintillating piece.
That was very pretty. The thing now, if we went to a concert and we heard that by that performer, he may or may not give an encore.
Mm-hmm. But I think...
But you can.
That's right, and you know, this is never heard. The Liszt, of course, is heard. Let's hear it again. that was Schumann's transcription of the 9th Paganini Caprice. Paganini Schumannized. Interestingly enough, the set of 6 Paganini Etudes of Liszt were dedicated to Clara Schumann. And Clara was one of the few women not in love with Liszt. She said, "Oh, this man is too much tinsel for me." And unfortunately, she colored Robert's thinking on this, because Liszt did so much for Schumann's piano music, gave the first performances of many things, such as the Fantasy, which is dedicated to Liszt, and many of his early piano works were then played by Liszt, and certainly throughout his career taught by him.
I was going to ask you that, because I read, looking through the books on Liszt, I was going to say, was it Schumann or Schubert? From what you say, it must have been Schumann, who was really very contemptuous of Liszt in later years, although during his conducting career, Liszt invariably played his music and brought it to the public all over.
He sure did. And in my opinion, it was Clara who did not like the character.
Mm-hmm.
And Schumann became suspicious of this grand manner. Schumann was a simple and fine man, and Liszt, I think, was a little too flamboyant for him. But we cannot take it away from Schumann, from Liszt, that he certainly did good service for Robert in Leipzig. Well, let's go on to the 6th Paganini Liszt Etude, but first let's hear the famous 24th Caprice, which Liszt transcribed for piano as the 6th Paganini Etude. It's the 24th Caprice, the most famous, and it's a set of variations on a tune that we all know. And that was Viktor Pikaizen in the 24th Caprice of Paganini. And on our next program, which will be within 23-hour span, we'll listen to Liszt's very literal transcription of this. And the pianist will be Andre Watts. And we'll continue with other etudes that Liszt wrote. We have now gone through the Paganini Liszt, almost, and the Transcendentals. Tomorrow we'll hear the Nomenregen and Waldesrauschen, Forest Murmurs. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Jim.
Thank you, David. Be looking forward to it tomorrow morning.